Welcome all, my name is Mick Blakey and this is video 2 in my series of black and white photo edits of images taken in Cornwall. Today's image I'm going to work on was taken at Land's End in Cornwall, an iconic location which I'm sure many of you have visited. There are several options for compositions here. The one I have chosen looks across to the hotel, which is perched on top of these dramatic granite cliffs. For those of you who are interested, I was shooting on a Canon 5D Mark III with a 16-35 lens at 21mm, f/16, ISO 100, exposure time of 150 seconds. Filters used were a 10-stop ND, 2-stop ND soft grad, and a polarizing filter. This is the raw capture straight out of camera. Quick look at the before and after. Okay, let's get started in Lightroom. Okay, software I'm using is Lightroom Classic CC and Photoshop. I'm working on a Mac with a Wacom tablet and stylus pen. First things first, I'm going into Lens Corrections, remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. Then into Detail, I'm going to remove all sharpening, as that will be the very last thing that I apply. Now I've got some issues up here in the buildings with the verticals and the horizontal. So to fix those, I am going to go into the Transform tab. I'm going to click on this symbol. Just zoom in first to 100%. And I'm going to run one vertical in line with that building, move over, and another vertical in line with that flagpole. When I release, they should snap and the verticals should be straightened. And yes, that's made a pretty good job of that. And then I'll just fit full screen and place a horizontal line over the horizon. And again, release, and that just snaps into place. So that's done a pretty good job of correcting those verticals and horizontals. Now what I want to move on to in the Basic tab are some global adjustments on the color image. I just like to get to a good starting point on color before I convert to black and white. Just going to reduce the temperature, cool it down a little bit. Make sure my highlight alert box is checked in my histogram, and then move down to my highlights. I'm going to pull those right back. Shadows I'm going to raise. Whites I'm going to push as far as I can till they start clipping, pull them back. And blacks I'm going to increase to give me a nice bit of contrast there. Dehaze, I'm just going to increase the dehaze to about there, just gives me a crisper image. Contrast, I'm going to add 20. Now I know as a color image this is starting to look pretty awful, but please bear in mind that this is going to be converted to black and white. And this is the way I like to edit my color image pre-conversion. Now I'm going to go down to HSL and I'm just going to pull back the saturation on the blues, on the yellows, and the orange. Tweak those a bit to about there. Back into the basic tab. Just check out my whites. Yeah, they're clipping there, so I'll pull them back. Blacks are okay. And now I'm going to convert to black and white. Okay, now this area in the bottom right is just bothering me, so I'm just going to grab a graduated filter. I'm going to enable the overlay, the mask overlay. You can press O on your keyboard or enable the box down here which says show selected mask overlay. Then I can just see what area is going to be affected. So I'll just drag that across there to about there. Disable the overlay. And I'm going to reduce the exposure to around about there. Create a new graduated filter and just pull it over this bottom part of the image. And again, with a good feather, just reduce my exposure. That's that done. And then the shadows in the basic tab, I'm just going to increase the shadows a little bit more to about there. Okay, now I think what I'll do now is crop the image. So go into my crop tool. Feel the balance of the image is not right. It's too heavy on the right hand side, so I'm going to drag it across from the left, take out that rock in the bottom corner, leave a nice bit of space at the end of the headland to around about there. Yes, I feel that image in terms of composition is more balanced now. And because we've got all these lovely rocks and these cliffs, I'm just going to increase the clarity in the basic tab to 30. Yes, I feel that helps. I feel that's all I'm going to do on the global adjustments. The local adjustments in Lightroom I'm going to work on after I've finished in Photoshop, where I'm going to clean up the image using the spot healing tool. So we will go right click, edit in, and edit in Photoshop. Okay, here we are in Photoshop. I do love this location, Land's End. It's so dramatic. These cliffs are just beautiful, and I really think it helps the composition having these buildings on top of these cliffs to give it some scale. Now, first things first, I'm going to create a duplicate layer, which is Command J on my keyboard. That will just give me a backup copy. Now I'm going to zoom into 100% to start cleaning the image up. Spacebar down, drag my image across to the top left, and then I'm coming up to the spot healing tool. Right click, it's the spot healing brush tool that we want. Settings, nice soft brush, so about midway on the hardness. Adjust the size with the left and right bracket keys and start working my way across the image. I'm looking for hot pixels, which unfortunately we get quite a few of with the long exposure, and dust spots, another hot pixel. And with the long exposures in the sky and especially in the water, it tends to highlight any blemishes and dust spots you may have on your sensor. Actually, it doesn't look too bad, my sensor, for this image, which is great. It makes a change. Come down here. We've just got a little bit of a weird area here, which I will correct with using the clone stamp tool. So we'll come back to that. Pretty much done cleaning up. Right, now let's address this area here. So as I said, I want to use the clone stamp. So we'll click on that. Now normally the flow, you will find, is set to 100%. This is key for the adjustment. 100% is going to be too severe. I'll just demonstrate. So I'm looking to tidy up this area. If I click there to sample, move across, you can see that just isn't going to work. So Command Z to remove those. And I'm going to leave my opacity on 100%, but my flow, I'm going to start off right down at 5%. And this will just feather this adjustment in nicely. It dilutes the effect. So quite a large size brush, sample there, and just start feathering that in. Keep sampling around the area that you're cleaning up. And then for here, I really want to feather it nicely, so I'm going to come all the way on my flow down to 1%. Sample there, which is a nice mid-grey. And there. As you can see, it's giving us a lovely, smooth, feathered edge. That's probably just about right. If I turn off this layer, you'll see the before and after. So before and after, before and after. Just makes all the difference. Command 0, full screen. Command minus to reduce on screen. And that's a nice clean image now, coming along nicely. So we'll go back into Lightroom for our final local adjustments. So I'm going to flatten these layers and then go to File, Close, and Save. And that will take us back into Lightroom. Okay, back in Lightroom. This is the part of the edit that I really enjoy, bringing this image to life now. So I think what I'll do first is grab the gradient filter. I just want to reduce the highlights on this left-hand side of the image. So drag that across with a good feather. Highlights, just pull those back to around about there. And another gradient filter over the sky. Drag that down to about there. Enable the overlay mask. Now I'm looking to just adjust the sky here. So I want to remove the land and pretty much all of the buildings from the selection. So I click on brush, erase, feather down, right down to 0, size, decent size, and I'm going to enable auto mask because I want the adjustment to just detect these edges. So if we start erasing, it makes a pretty good job of removing that mask from the cliffs and the edges. I'm not bothered that there's still a little bit of a mask over the tops of these buildings. Auto mask off, and increase the size of my brush. Just clean that selection away. That just pretty much leaves us with the sky. So overlay off. I'm going to the dehaze slider. I'm just going to increase that to give me more contrast in the sky. You can see that brings up the sky beautifully to around about there. I'm just going to reduce the clarity a touch to just soften the clouds to around about there. So before and after gives the image a bit more drama. So that's that done. Now I'm really going to go to town now with the radial filter for my dodging and burning. So click on that. I'm going to increase the whites, the clarity, and the contrast, and just start working around the image on those adjustments. Bit too much on the whites there. I think I'll bring the contrast back, and the clarity is just a little bit too much. Okay, so duplicate that, right click, and then drag that across, just increase the whites on that. And then here, back on the whites. Just reduce the highlights there and the whites. Increase the whites there. Increase the whites. I'm going to give that area more black and some clarity. I just want to reduce the whites there, give it more clarity, more black there. Increase the clarity of these rocks. Yeah. Add some more white there. Just raise the exposure a little bit. A little bit of white there. More clarity. Add some clarity there. A little bit more black. Gives the image more depth. Add some clarity there. Down here, I just want to take the exposure down a little bit to about there. Pull back the highlights there. More clarity. More clarity in these rocks. Now at this stage, it's coming along nicely. I just want to see what it was like before we started these local adjustments. So if I press on my backslash key, I'll get the before, after, before, which looks pretty flat. After, I feel it just brings the image to life. So I'm just going to carry on with the radial filter. More blacks up there. And some whites there. More white and more clarity. That's just a bit bright, that area. I'm just going to reduce the exposure. And just reduce the exposure in this bottom corner. You can keep going on and on with this. I do love this process. I feel it makes such a difference to the image. So again, let's look before and after. Press the wrong key. So let's get the image back. And backslash for before the local adjustments, after, before, after. So I feel that's helped a lot. What I'd like to do now is some noise reduction. So I'm just going to go in 100%. Just see how bad it is. Not too bad. There's a little bit of noise in there, which I just want to address. So just up to about there. And then sharpening. I'm going to apply quite a bit to this because I really want to sharpen up these cliffs and rocks, but I will mask it. So if we go into sharpening, I'm going to apply, let's just go in close and see what effect this has. Going to go in around 70. Let's just move around the image a bit. Just give that a minute to render. Yeah, I think that's enough. That's nice and crisp now. And now to masking. So press my Alt key down, come down to the masking slider. And white to reveal, black to conceal. So we want to push that up so that we've just got those cliffs and rocks sharpened, but the sky and water is not affected by the sharpening. So that's noise reduction, sharpening. And the last thing I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a virtual copy of that as it is. But I think what I'll do is just try some split toning. I'm going to go into the shadows, and the hue I'm going to set at 226, and the saturation at 10. Yeah, I like that. It gives it a cooler feel. I feel with these granite cliffs, the blue tint really suits the image. If I just show you before, that was the edited image with all the adjustments in black and white without the tint, and then that is the image with the tint. So if we just go full screen, press F on my keyboard, it's looking pretty dramatic. And as I've said before, I just like to reduce the size of the image. It simulates you stepping back from it, and press L twice on my keyboard for lights out. And I think that is the finished image. Hope you like it. Okay, that wraps up this video. Thanks for watching, and do feel free to leave your comments. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to my channel. Until my next video, bye for now.